from a crossing of the Delaware River on Christmas night, to 2,400 men marching through a blizzard barefoot, to a battle that saved the American Revolution in under 2 hours. This is the Battle of Trenton explained, a battle so lopsided that Washington's army lost more men to frostbite than to enemy fire. The Hessians lost everything, and if this attack had failed, the United States as a country probably does not survive to see 1777. But let's rewind. Revolutions do not get saved by accident, unless you are in December 1776. And George Washington has exactly one card left to play. Here is the situation. Late 1776. The American Revolution is collapsing. The British had landed over 30,000 troops in New York that summer. They crushed Washington at the Battle of Long Island, then at White Plains, then at Fort Washington. The Continental Army had been reduced from over 20,000 men to barely 6,000, and most of those had enlistments expiring on December 31st. In 2 weeks, the army would simply dissolve. Morale was gone. The British chased Washington across New Jersey. Congress fled Philadelphia. People in New Jersey started signing loyalty oaths to the king again. Thomas Paine, traveling with the army, wrote the words that summed up the moment. These are the times that try men's souls. Washington retreated across the Delaware River into Pennsylvania. He had his army. He had some artillery. He had a handful of boats. And he had 14 days before his army legally ceased to exist. So Washington made a decision. Attack. It made no sense on paper. His men were exhausted. They were hungry. They had no winter clothing. Many had no shoes. The river was choked with ice. The Hessian garrison at Trenton, New Jersey, was nearly 1,500 professional soldiers, veterans of Europe's wars, the finest mercenaries money could buy. But Washington had two things on his side: surprise and Christmas. The Hessians celebrated Christmas the German way: feasting, drinking. Colonel Johann Rall, the Hessian commander, was an old-school soldier. He thought Washington's army was broken. He did not bother building defensive fortifications. He did not post extra guards. A loyalist farmer came to his door on Christmas Day with a warning. The Americans are planning something. Rall was in the middle of a card game. He took the note. He put it aside. He never read it. That note would still be in his coat the next morning. December 25.1776. Sunset. The crossing begins. Washington gathered every boat he could find. Durham boats. Heavy, flat-bottom vessels used for hauling iron or on the river. About 40 feet long. They could carry roughly 40 men each. The plan was for 3 columns to cross at different points. 2 never made it. The ice was too thick. The current was too strong. Only Washington's column got across. 2,400 men. 18 cannons. A nor'easter hit in the middle of the operation. Rain turned to sleet. Sleet turned to snow. The river ran fast and hard with slabs of ice. The boatmen, mostly fishermen from Marblehead, Massachusetts, navigated in the dark, fighting the current, dodging ice floes. They made trip after trip after trip. It took 9 hours. By 4 in the morning, everyone was across. The snow was coming in sideways. The temperature was well below freezing. The men were soaked through, and now they had to march 9 miles to Trenton. In the dark, in a blizzard, on roads that had turned to mud and ice. The password that night was victory or death. Washington did not picket for dramatic effect. Some soldiers had wrapped their feet in rags because their shoes had disintegrated weeks earlier. They left bloody footprints in the snow as they marched. 2 men collapsed from the cold and died during the march. Washington rode up and down the column. Keep moving. Keep moving. We are almost there. Dawn. December 26th. The storm was still raging. The snow was actually helping. It muffled sound. It limited visibility. The Hessian sentries could barely see a few dozen yards ahead. Washington divided his force into 2 wings. General Nathaniel Greene advanced from the north. General John Sullivan swung in from the west. They would hit the town from both sides at once. At 8 in the morning, the Americans charged. The Hessians were not ready. They had been up late celebrating. They were still shaking off the night before. Some were still in bed. They grabbed their muskets. They stumbled into the streets, and they ran straight into columns of Americans emerging from the blizzard. The artillery opened up. Knox's cannons, the same ones they had dragged across the ice-choked river, fired down King Street and Queen Street. The infantry closed in from both directions. The Hessians were trapped. Colonel Rall tried to rally his men in the middle of King Street. He took a round to the chest. He was carried into a nearby church. Later that morning, he died. Accounts say the unread warning note was still in his coat pocket. The battle lasted about an hour and a half. When it was over, 22 Hessians were dead. 83 were wounded. Nearly 900 were captured. The rest had fled into the countryside. American casualties? 3 men died of exposure during the march. About 5 were wounded in the fighting. That was it. Washington had just won the most lopsided American victory of the Revolutionary War. And he knew exactly what it meant. He told his men to rest, to eat, to warn themselves. And then he told them something else. We're not done. On December 31st, the day the enlistments were set to expire, Washington stood in front of his army. He asked them to stay, just 6 more weeks. He offered a $10 bounty. He did not give a speech. He just asked. One by one, the men stepped forward. They re-enlisted. The army that was supposed to dissolve on January 1st was still standing. A week after Trenton, Washington struck Princeton. Same approach. Another win. The British pulled out of New Jersey entirely. Congress returned to Philadelphia. The French started paying attention. The revolution would go on for another 6 years. But it was those 2 weeks, from Christmas to Princeton, that kept it alive. Here is the honest summary. The Battle of Trenton was not a huge battle by military standards. 1,500 Hessians, a few thousand Americans, less than 2 hours of fighting in a snowstorm. Small by the numbers. But without Trenton, the Continental Army disbands on January 1.1777. The revolution ends. The British restore order, and the Declaration of Independence becomes a footnote in the history of failed rebellions. Every American who ever lived after 1776 owes something to a group of frozen, barefoot men who crossed an ice-choked river on Christmas night because their general asked them to. Sometimes history balances on a single night. This was one of them. If you appreciated watching a hungover Hessian garrison get overrun by an army that crossed a frozen river in a blizzard, what is the worst weather you have ever seen change an outcome? Did it involve cannons and Christmas Eve? Probably not. But tell me anyway. Next time, we head to Baltimore Harbor, 1814. The British have just burned the nation's capital. A young lawyer named Francis Scott Key watches from a truce ship as Fort McHenry absorbs 25 hours of continuous bombardment. And what he scribbles down on the back of an envelope the next morning is still being sung by an entire country 2 centuries later. See you then.